Welcome to End of Life University on YouTube. Today, I have two guests who are part of the Minnesota Death Collaborative, Michelle Kolling and Nina Guertin. And we're going to be talking about how to create a collaborative in your community in order to improve end of life care wherever you live. And they're just a wealth of information with lots of tips and suggestions. I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. So stay tuned for it and make sure you've subscribed to this channel if you haven't already. Also, subscribe and leave a rating and review for the podcast wherever you happen to listen. And go to eoluniversity.com/support to find 3 different ways you can make a small financial contribution, which will help keep this channel and the podcast on the air. And thanks in advance if you choose to do that. So we'll move on now with my conversation with Michelle and Nina. Today, I'm very happy to welcome two guests to the podcast, Michelle Kolling and Nina Guertin. Michelle is a hospice volunteer and end of life doula who trained with Enelda. She serves as secretary of the Minnesota Death Collaborative, and she's the founder of HELD, HELD, which provides grief coaching, death doula services, end of life planning, and also special events focused on death and dying. And you can learn more about Michelle's work at her website, which is HELDoula, HELDOULA.com. And my second guest is Nina Guertin, and Nina is a death doula, death educator and a co-founder of the Minnesota Death Collaborative. She is also a hospice chaplain, certified interfaith spiritual director, and grief support specialist, ritualist, and celebrant. And her website is tendingthespirit.care. And both of them are going to be talking to us today about the Minnesota Death Collaborative. And you can find out more at that website, mndeathcollaborative.org. So welcome, Michelle and Nina.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well because for the last couple of years, I've been talking a lot about collaboration as being a priority. And I feel like now that so many people are being called into this work and different types of work around end of life, it's really important that we all come together and focus on collaboration. So that's why I wanted to talk to both of you about the Minnesota Death Collaborative. But let's start by first having each one of you just tell us a little bit about your own story and what brings you to this work. And maybe, Michelle, you could lead us off.
Sure. Well, like many who come to death work, I had a transformative experience in helping my husband die almost 13 years ago now. And um, that was kind of my first experience of learning to hold the horror and the beauty of death at the same time. Um, in recovering from that, I knew it was life-changing. I said out loud, this doesn't have to be life-ruining. And it really led to a slow awakening in a lot of ways. So in my recovery, I kind of made a study of death and dying and grief. I was kind of watching myself go through it as I was going through it. Um, And the idea of being a death doula crossed my path. I think I read an article, and folded it and put it aside. I wasn't ready, and I was trying to work my way through grief at this point. And then there came a point where that wasn't working anymore. Um, I left my job, was not super graceful the way that happened. I didn't have a plan, I didn't save enough money, but somehow I knew I'd be taken care of. And now I had time and energy to focus on what was next. And the saying goes that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And in my life, I had two amazing teachers come into my life at that time. The cool thing is they both lived within mere blocks of me in the same neighborhood in Minneapolis. And one of those teachers continues to be my coach and my spiritual teacher today, Jeremiah Ringel with Intro Awareness. And my other teacher is here with me today, Nina, um, who, like I said, became my Nina, or my Nina. That's what I like to call her. A lot of us call her my Nina. And she became my teacher and mentor, and I found her at this thing called the Minnesota Death Collaborative. And I walked into the church where you were meeting that day, and I was just had this feeling come over me of I found my people. And kept networking. I did formal training with Anelda, and started volunteering. And then I was accepted into a pioneering program that Nina co-created here in town at Shalom Hospice, where they were integrating doulas into the volunteer services there. And then I created my private practice around the same time, and that's where I am today.
Wow. I love that you use the term a transformative death, the
Mm,
transformative power of death, because I think, anytime you go through that such tremendous, huge pain of loss, everything changes and
it really
nothing in
does.
your life is the same anymore. But honestly, it changes everything for the community around you also. And so like that transformative power is so great that it literally has ripple effects, and you end up meeting your Nina and other teachers, and each one of you is causing ripples for other people, and it's really an amazing thing that we have this chance to watch. And I love this full circle, and I'm so happy that Nina is here with you today, so
Me
we get to
too.
know her also.
Thank you.
So with that introduction, Nina, please tell us a little bit more about your story.
Sure. So I think, when talking with other doulas, we all have a story or stories or experiences that have brought us to the work. And um, mine probably are family related as well. My dad had a very quick death when I was 34. My brother had AIDS, and so his death was more elongated. He died when I was 38, and then my mom died when I was 50, and she had congestive heart failure and ended up going into hospice. So that was my first experience with what is hospice, and so just what I think through those experiences, I saw this one could have been better. This one was really bad. Wish it could have been better. And and this one wasn't too bad, and it still could have been better. And through sort of that process, so my mom died in 2008, and in 2009 I was nudged out of corporate and became a full-time artist and traveled the Midwest selling ceramic angels. And um, so there, in doing that work, there are always all these nudges that sort of come when you're doing spiritual work and putting yourself out there and being inclusive and not ever shunning and not ever, even whoever shows up in the tent, they're supposed to be there. And so I always approach that as they're my teacher. And so I was consistently getting nudges. So from doing that work with angels and having people tell me their stories, I had a nudge to become a spiritual director, which then taught me how to listen. And then from that, I got a nudge to volunteer for hospice. And as crass as this sounds, this is the truth. I didn't like old people. I didn't like sick people. I didn't like sick kids. I couldn't figure out why I kept getting this push about hospice. And so I was really resistant about it. And this woman kept coming to my studio, and she would buy some angels, and she would go. And finally, one day, I think it was her third time there, I said, "Well, what do you do?" And she said, "I'm a hospice bereavement coordinator." And I said, "Oh, would you spend some time with me and tell me about hospice?" And so she did. And so then that I got hooked into the hospice volunteer program and started out as a friendly visitor, which I'm really bad at. Because, like Michelle said, especially having spiritual direction formation training, I'm taught to have these deeper conversations. And so to have a conversation where I'm talking about the weather or talking about grandkids or, it just was like, there's more and I can't figure it out. So I was tending my resignation and the volunteer coordinator was great. And she said, I think you need to try 11th hour. And so I did an 11th hour with a gentleman and his brother. The gentleman was dying and his brother was there. They had lived in the house their whole lives. They were hoarders. And um, the, the gentleman that was dying, this was my first time, sitting really beside someone that was dying. So I walked in and I'm sitting there and I thought, I don't know what to do with him. And I turned and his brother had gotten a chair and like put it down right in the galley kitchen where there was a little bit of room. And he was watching me and I turned and looked at him and I said, how are you? And he talked for about 4 hours. And
Oh,
I thought,
wow.
this is what I want to do. And so it was within a day or so. I was driving home, and on Minnesota Public Radio was Jane Whitlock and Christy Mo Merrick, who were having a conversation about doulas and what they do. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. So I got trained and came back, and then took it from there. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's really a beautiful story.
Thank you.
I love how it seems to me when you start diving deep into spirituality, you end up at death. And if you start
Mhm.
diving deep into death, you end up in spirituality, like because they end up just going hand in hand.
For
Because
sure.
the death of the physical body takes us deeper and deeper into our higher selves and consciousness and the spirit. And so I love it that you knew that right away, like that was where you wanted your focus to be.
Yeah, it's like one more nudge, and so it was like that one pushed me hard.
Yeah. Well, Nina, you were one of the original founders of the Minnesota Death Collaborative. So how did that come about?
Yeah, there were like three or four groups that were trying to make it happen, and there was maybe a little bit of overlap of people, and it just wasn't getting traction. And it ended up that at one point there were, through just this continued yes, I'll say yes, I'll say yes, I'll say yes. We ended up there were 8 people at the first meeting, um, after these groups had sort of kind of shifted and changed. And then we ended up with 7. And the 7 of us were really the co founders of it. And we all came with an open heart, an open mind, and a willingness to work together, because that really was the driver for a collaborative. We understood that that we needed to be in alignment, that we each had gifts that we were bringing to the organization. So how do we use those gifts and push it forward and make it something for everyone that is in that's death relative? So that's pretty much how we started, and just had monthly meetings and tasks, and here's what we have to do, and now we have to start inviting people in, and so yeah.
Are you statewide or primarily located in the Minneapolis region?
We are statewide. The majority are in the Twin Cities region. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Uh, because it's really nice to be able to get together in person. I mean, face to face, but also to have a smaller geographic region sometimes to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Michelle, what about you? How did you end up getting involved in the collective? I know that's where you met Nina, but
Yeah, and then it was time for the leadership to kind of decide if this was going to be a thing and bring in more people. So Nina twisted my arm. I was very reluctant. I think when I look back, I think, I have a business background. I've worked in small businesses. I've worked as the right hand to entrepreneurs, um, and feel pretty comfortable in that space. I think I had a little bit of PTSD, which was part of my reluctance, but Nina talked me into joining. So um, I replaced their finance person. We had roles. And then I eventually moved into the secretary role, which she wanted me to do right away. And I was reluctant about it. And now I am the secretary. And once again, Nina was right. Um, so we started calling ourselves, 2.0, this group that um, took over from the founders. There was a lot of overlap where which worked out great for us. It was some of the founders stayed on, and we staggered the leadership changes, which I think worked really well. And those of us who were coming in, the second generation, we definitely felt um, the weight of this legacy, and how are we going to continue it, and how are we going to grow it. And I think, I've heard you say, Nina, that we weren't sure if this was going to be a thing, and what it would turn into. And it is a thing, and it did kind of turn into a movement. And so, like I said, we felt the responsibility of that, but also felt very well held in moving things forward.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what you would say, Michelle, and I'll ask Nina this too about the benefits of belonging to the collaborative. Like, why would someone want to join it and want to be part of the collaborative?
Well, the biggest thing is community. Honestly, it's a community of people doing this work. Like I said, when I first walked into that room, and I think at that time, that first meeting I went to, there was maybe 10 people there. But there was just the sense of, this is where I belong. This is what I've been looking for. Um, Doing death work can be really, really intense. We need to support each other. It can be too much for one person to hold. I think it's interesting. One of the first things that I talk about with a new client is, we're going to need a team. We're going to need a team. So who is your inner circle? Who do you trust most in the world to help you through that experience? And I think that's what the Death Collaborative is for professionals doing the work. Um, it's it's continuing education. Honestly, we do great programming, and so even for people who are just thinking about going into this work, we have a really accessible friend level membership, so people can kind of just get a feel for it. And honestly, even in my private work, I think pretty much every client, the majority for sure, have come through the Death Collaborative one way or another, either through my own professional listing or a referral, or saw me out somewhere with the collaborative. Um, so yeah, I think it's just really, it's a great place for anyone doing this kind of work to be.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me as we've been working now for a few decades trying to shift our culture in a way, in our culture's acceptance of death and dying, and having an organization that backs each one of us up. So it's not just an individual going out and talking to people and saying, this is the work I do, but I'm part of this big movement that's
Mhm.
happening. And there are a lot of people in it, and more people keep joining. It gives more credibility in the community and
Yeah.
validation, and also I think helps us feel more confident and stronger because we have the backing of all these other people who are doing similar work.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that makes us unique is that we're not all doulas. We've got so many other disciplines. And that's one thing that I can say with clients when I sit with them too is and I do say, I've got this great group. And if you need something, I may not have the answer, but I know someone who does.
Mm.
And so, if you need legal documents, I've got lawyers. If you want a sound bath, I have someone to go to. If you need a photographer or, there's so many different disciplines. Um, so it feels like when I'm walking in there, I'm not walking in alone because I've got this behind me.
That's awesome. And Nina, what are your thoughts and what would you like to add on this topic?
Well, I think, I was thinking about this. How they say two heads are better than one. How about five? Or how about seven? And I think each of us is good at what we do, and each of us has a niche that we feel really comfortable in, and we maybe have um, a broad view of where we can answer questions. And if I can refer someone to someone else that really can go on a deep dive with that person if that's what they need, thank you. We it helps us to be able to troubleshoot. If I'm doing a vigil, let's say, and protocol really, if someone is going to die, it can take anywhere from hours to days, once they're actively dying, or week, or longer. I can't sustain every single night for 3 hours, right? It's too much emotionally, it's too hard. And so we can count on each other. We can say, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to be out of town. Can you come in? Can you serve? Can you do this? And I have yet to find people that say, no, I can't. No, I'm not doing it. I won't do it. No, we are there to not only serve the client who is that middle drop in the pond, but we are there to serve the families and the friends, and we're there to serve each other. And I think that is really, I might get emotional about that, but it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing, and a lot of gratitude for everybody that knows so much more than I do that I can count on, just by hitting a phone call.
Mhm.
It's wonderful, really, really helpful.
And I love that. And because death is such a multifactorial experience, I mean, the end of life for anyone, there's so many different factors happening in so many different aspects of life. There's no way that just one individual alone could actually help guide a family in all of those areas. And knowing that you have
Mhm.
this whole team of people, no matter what comes up, there are other people you can contact who have expertise and who could help out. I just think that would make a huge difference in how you practice too,
Yeah.
and the comfort level you feel.
Well, I think it keeps you humble too, because you know what your limits are, and it's like I wear a lot of different hats, and I don't need to wear the green burial hat. I don't need to wear the body disposition hat. I can, I have other people that I can turn that over to that can do that work, and they're fabulous at it. So why wouldn't I? Yeah.
That's
And
so
I,
perfect. Go
I
ahead.
feel like too, just the energy that was put in by the founders is all it's the person who's dying is at the center. And that just feels like everyone who's in this just holds that sacred. And there's this almost this trust level. Like if you're part of this organization, it's like it, I Nina can trust me with her client and vice versa, because we all want to make this experience for our person, that person who is dying. Sounds weird, the best experience it can be, but I just feel like that it's almost baked into the thread of the organization.
It seems to me from the beginning of my experience in working in this area, it seems like the people who are called to do death work, already, like Nina mentioned, you have to have an open heart and an open mind, and that by and large, the people who come to this work are already at that place where they come to open-hearted, open-minded, and that's one of the beauties of working together is you actually meet amazing people when you do
Mhm.
come together in collaboration.
Yeah.
I'll give
Yeah,
an
and
example.
I think people find out very soon when they come to this where they need to do their own work first. That rises to the top very quickly. Um, which is also another reason for the MNDC to be a great place for new practitioners to come, because we've all been there and we can help people, help new doulas, new practitioners through that.
And Nina, were you going to add something?
No, I think I'm good. I
O-
think I'm
o-
good on that.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
because I was just thinking this is probably a good time to just ask about some of the like what kind of events have come about because of the MN Death Collaborative, any types of community events you've held, or what type of continuing ed events you hold for people.
Well, I think, well, I know that originally what we wanted to do was, um, because we were all new, everybody was new. Some of us had been doing some of that work for a while or similar work for a while. Um, and there was this whole group of doulas who had never done the work, right? And so to be able to, at that time when we initially started, we were meeting in person. So we could meet in person and we could do education and we could help, we could answer questions and all of that. When we went to Zoom, we continued to do the events and it was just an expanded version, and which really was helpful, kind of to come back to your question about are we outstate plus, you know, that really helped to build some relationships because we do get calls for people. Do you know anybody in Duluth? Do you know anybody in Brainerd? Do you know anybody in Rochester? And so we can say, yeah, we do. Um, so yeah, I think the events that we do are helpful in the networking aspect, but then also we are constantly educating, and we're all learning. We're all each other's teachers, so the sky's kind of the limit on that, which I think is a beautiful thing, and um, it's always inviting people to learn more. What do you need to know? What do you want to know? And I'm going to turn that over to Michelle too, because I think um, you've got something to say on that, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of different events. We recently got our first ever grant funding to
Mhm.
do our first conference, which we're really excited about. So that's going to be happening in September. We have a book club, which, focused on, death and dying, and that's for the whole, for, you don't have to be a member for that. We have some other members only um, programming. We just started, well, it's been a few months now. Nina and I facilitated something we call the Death Download. And so it's kind of just an open once a month, bring your questions, your ideas, your queries, your
Your grief.
thoughts, your grief.
Yep.
And we all just meet. There's no programming, there's no curriculum. It's like, what do you bring today? Sometimes we're talking about how do I start a business? Sometimes we're talking about this case was really, really hard and I just need to talk about it. So that has been just a really, really beautiful and deep offering. Um, we are going to be starting, this is something I'm really proud of. We're going to be starting something that we're calling the Team Richard Doula Assistance Fund. We had someone who was inspired by services they received and help with her father at the end of his life. And she wanted to give back. So she gave us seed money to start this fund. And we came up with a program where we are now going to have mentors and mentees. So we'll have an experienced doula working with a new doula and serving a family who perhaps wouldn't be able to hire a doula on their own. They don't have the resources for that. So we have this fund so a doula can get paid, and a new doula can get experience, and the family is kind of getting a 2-for-1. So it just felt like a win-win-win. So it feels that is something we're really excited about. And it feels like those are the kinds of opportunities that come together with the energy that's been created in this organization.
Can
Wow.
I
I
can
love
I
that
say?
idea.
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Gina.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So what we are finding is that there are people that are really grateful for the work that we're doing, and they come to us through MNDC. So like we do have the team Richard. We also, part of there was seed money for the conference. Um, we have a scholarship program for disadvantaged learn how to be doulas and take it back into their community. And so we're blessed, and we are offered gratitude because we are grateful. And I think it's this beautiful circle of gratitude that goes around, and it enhances what we can do, and it also serves a need. So a lot of gratitude around that as well.
Mm. I love that. And it sounds as though there's this value too in staying together and keeping at this, the persistence over the years, because things that you may have wished for the first year aren't quite possible, but they come gradually over time because of all the energy and the care that you put into tending to that organization. And I was wondering, starting with you, Nina, if you have any tips about how do you sustain a collaborative like this? Because I've been part of other groups in the past where there was a founding core of people who started it. And yet, when those people were ready to move on, it was really hard to pass on that same energy. And you guys talked about the 2.0 that you have been able to maintain this organization. And I'm sure Michelle could talk about it too. But do you have any tips around that idea of being sustainable?
Well, I think it's number one, it's being inclusive, and we are probably more sustainable because it's not just doulas. And I think that that's really important. We wanted to be our vision, values, and mission is part of it is to be the central resource for anyone in the state of Minnesota around death and dying. And
Mm.
so if you have that breadth of of folks that know a whole bunch of different things, then you can you start to attract that as well. So we don't just attract doulas, we attract funeral directors, we attract green burial people, we attract, like Michelle said, photographers, Reiki people, really anything that you could do around death. And some of them are in the beginnings of things, and so they're doing a friend membership, and then others are professional members where they actually their shingle is out on the MNDC site, and that's for the cost of membership for professional membership. It's like having another website besides your own, that helps, and so I think when we look at the educational possibilities, the networking events. We have a speakers bureau that goes out and educates. We're just constantly invite, and include. And I think if you step into things with an idea of that you're already abundant, it just makes it go that much better. Yeah.
It's so true. And that there's no limit to the passion that's
Yeah.
involved and the desire to serve and to help with these issues. And Michelle, I know you mentioned being part of the 2.0 group that overlapped and took over. So what are your thoughts about that on tips for sustainability? Because I think that is a big factor for organizations like this.
Yeah. And we do talk about that. And it's really about, we talk about, how can we continue to provide value? And I think our core the core thing that we started with was that once a month community call, which is, like I said, continuing education. We bring in super high quality speakers from all areas of death work and all different lenses. And I think just that's one thing, is sticking to that core. And it's continuous outreach. And making sure we're providing value for our members. Me and Nina mentioned too that, when the COVID shutdowns happened and we had to go online, that really benefited us because we can really say, and we talk about it in our meetings as well, that we are the Minnesota Death Collaborative, not the Minneapolis Death Collaborative. And so, we have a way to, now with being on Zoom monthly, we have a way for the rural areas to also stay connected and have that touch point. We always hear, well, it's funny because we hear both things, I think, equally. When are you going to be in person again? I really want to do in person. I hope you're going to stay online now that we can, now that we can go back to in person. Please stay online. So it's really important that we really are focusing on the whole state and the needs of our organization. So that means we're talking to people. What do you want, and what has value to you, and helping each other and answering those calls. That's another thing. People are reaching out all the time. Can I, do you have time to talk with me? I'm thinking about doing this work, and saying yes, because someone said yes to me.
Mhm.
And so saying yes and just continuing to have those conversations, and offering it as a resource outside of this too, offering it as a resource to hospice nurses and those maybe outside already that have some sort of job in healthcare or some other institution, but also being a bridge to those organizations and not being insular. Everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
I love that idea. And, there will always be a need for mentorship, like
Mhm.
always. And I think that is part of growing, is that we have to support new people who are just now getting the spark of interest and making sure they find what they need. And it sounds like you've been able to keep this organization really fresh, and also just meeting the needs of the members of your organization and the community as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of really big ideas. And we have conversations all the time about, okay, that's a great idea. How are we going to execute? And we have conversations about getting out over our skis um, and even, the energy that's being created by this conversation, what will that lead to? And the energy of this conference, what's that going to lead to? And kind of being ready for that next thing. We all are so excited, and we all are the doers. That's the other part. We are a steering committee of doers. We're not advisors. So we also have to, pump the brakes sometimes and say, you know, we need to take a smaller bite here because we need to, and we talked about that even with the conference. We started with these big ideas, and it's like, okay, let's just calm down. This is our first one. Let's keep it simple and let's execute really, really well. And everything we need for this first conference, we already have in our membership. So let's highlight our people. And so we're really excited what's going to come out of that, and also bracing a little bit. But as we look to the future, we look to, hey, we would love to be able to have paid staff here coming up. we'd love to have volunteers help with the work coming up. So we feel like, that's probably in the next year or two to continue to expand what we have to offer.
Mm. I like that advice of slow down and take a smaller bite. That's really good advice for me because I've always been a person who gets in way over my head right at the beginning. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
still trying to learn that. But
yeah.
one of my hopes for this conversation is that there will be other communities out there who get inspired, people in other communities who think, you know what, we should have a collaborative here. There's so many people who work in this area, and so maybe I'll start with you, Nina, since you were one of the original founders, to ask, do you have tips if anyone listening is thinking, I would like to do this? Like, how do you even get started? And what would you suggest people do?
Well, you get started by networking, and I don't like the word networking particularly, and though it is a just getting to know people that are in the same profession. Okay, so if you're a doula, get to know a few other doulas. If you are a doula and you need to have some resources, figure out who you want to use for your resources, and then find people that are in alignment and start talking about what if we had a collaborative. And the reason it's a collaborative and not a collective is because it's a collaborative. We collaborate together. We're not just a collection of people. It's we are collaborating all the time with each other, and that's really what's important. And to really find people that can take their egos and set them aside and do what's best for the the group as a whole. It's not about I really shine at this and I want to do this and oh look at me. It's a I'm good at this. I really do shine at this and how can I do this to help us move this forward? So
Mm.
it's really having that desire to stay in a collaborative mindset, open-hearted, open-minded, collaborative. It's not a competition. We don't. That's the thing. We're not. I don't believe any of us ever feel like we're competing with each other. It's like
Mm.
even if I get a call and I feel I'm stretched and I can't take it, I know I have 10 people that I can refer. So I think about okay, who do I think is going to be the best fit for this, and then I invite them. Are you interested in this? And then boom, it's off my plate, which I'm grateful for because, we all get stretched, right? So it's not a competition. It's a gift. It's a gift that I have a doula referral group. It's a gift that I have a funeral director at my right hand. It's a gift so I want to work with them. I don't want to work against. So I think it's just having that mindset.
Mm. I really like that. And one of the things that I imagine, at least, I mean, I always think this way, that there are probably more people interested in being part of this group than you could even realize. So you just go out with your good intention and you start talking to people and asking them, and you may be really surprised. People listening in your own community, there may be people you never would have thought, but who, when they hear this idea, will step up and say, that I want to be part of that. And so I don't know if that was your experience, but it just seems like we have to have some courage and not hesitate to just talk to all kinds of people and tell them what we're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Even I remember when I did a trust, my own personal trust, and I said to the lawyer, I said, I would love you to look at joining the Minnesota Death Collaborative. And I did it probably 3 times and didn't get any kind of response. And now we have how many lawyers, Michelle? At least more than
We've
more
got a
than that,
couple.
right?
Yeah,
We got a few.
we've
So
got a handful.
it's maybe not that one, and someone else said yes. And so it is. It's always inviting. I think that's part of that inclusivity aspect and that invitational aspect. I would much rather be invited to do something than be told I have to do something, right? So invite me and, and then invite someone else. So, yeah.
Yeah, so true. And Michelle, from your perspective as the secretary, do you have any tips you would share of groups that are just at the beginning trying to form a collaborative?
I think what's most important is that you're really, really intentional with your purpose and really intentional with your why. And the people who are sitting in that living room for the, first couple of times are aligned around that. And then also the outcome, that there's some alignment on what really are we doing here and what is the outcome, and then not being attached with to how you're going to get there. But I think that intention um is a really important place to start, because that's what's going to draw people to you. And then, like I said before, small bites, take small steps, and follow where the nudges lead you, because you are creating an energy. Things will start to come to you, and it will kind of be revealed what it's going to turn into. And it has to come from the heart. It just absolutely has to come from the heart.
And just on the administrative side of things, is the collaborative like a nonprofit organization? And do you have things like bylaws and a mission statement, a vision statement, all of that?
We do. We have a mission, vision, values, and we have done strategic planning, and have upgraded that over time. I think originally it was an LLC, because I think you guys are just, we want to make it an organization, and we're a little unsure of just exactly, but you wanted to make it legal.
Right.
And that was one of the first things I did when I came in, actually, was help facilitate getting us converted to a nonprofit. So now we can put that extra, that money we'd be paying out for our taxes, we can put back into the organization and invest in the organization. So we do have bylaws, um, and we do, it's legal. It's yep, so you do need all those pieces, and I didn't do it, but I found someone that could help us. So it's all about facilitating and finding those really good partners. But we have, as we've gotten bigger, you have to have all that infrastructure. When you pull back the curtain and see how things really run, there's a lot that goes into it. So, but you don't have to start with all of that. You don't have to start with all of that. It starts with an idea and an intention, and a real passion to want to create.
It sounds to me that it makes sense that that infrastructure is an important part of helping your organization grow, because that is the foundation in a way, and it
Absolutely.
makes you a tighter knit in a way and better organized so you can grow bigger and bigger. And I have been part of groups where we let our idealistic ideas of what we wanted to create take the lead without creating the structure underneath it. And it made it really
Yeah.
hard to stay together and keep moving forward and keep
Yeah.
functioning. But when you have the mission and vision statement, you can always go back to those, like, wait, this is why we're doing this. Like you said,
Yeah.
your intention and your why for why you're together.
Yeah.
We start every community call by reading our mission and our vision, and every steering committee, we read it. This is the lens through which we make these decisions. And for other organizations who want to start, you don't have to get a Zoom account and QuickBooks and all of those right off the bat. We started with, everyone had a spreadsheet. Our membership was a spreadsheet, and all of these things came in over time. And then when it made sense, when it was, now we've got database member management software, and now we do have QuickBooks, and now we do have a Zoom account, and all of those things, but it happened when the time was right. Um, so again, it it can be overwhelming when you think about starting any kind of business. Um, and so just, take it one step at a time, start with small bites, and see where it takes you.
Well, and I think too that we when we started, even talking about what are we going to charge? What's our membership gonna, well, how are we gonna do that? And we ended up, Cheryl Larson, who is a feng shui practitioner as well as an end of life doula, she said it has to be nines. We have to do nines because some feng shui thing. And I love nines. And so, we all just, it was like, okay, how about 45 bucks for, friendship? How about 90 bucks for professional? And 100, it just, it was all nines. And so, I think that intentional and joyful, too, attitude around it. It's like, this does, this is a bit, this is a company, or I don't know, a corporation or business, or I don't know what we call it, but it's a nonprofit. And we all really came at it with joy. How do we make this happen? And really, as a founding member, I can say that I know that we were all really grateful for Michelle's expertise in shifting us. We knew we wanted to get to nonprofit status, we just didn't know how. And when she came in, it was like just this gentle flow into that space, and a lot of work on her part. And though it worked, so yeah, a lot of gratitude.
I love
Thanks,
being
Tina.
able to hear both from both of you about the beginning and the growth, that it's come to today, because it takes all of us and it takes all different types of expertise. That first of all, in order to start something and nurture it from the very beginning, but then someone who can step in and help it grow into something even greater. And so we all have to have different skill sets and expertise to make that happen.
Yeah.
And there have been hiccups that, there have been some patches that that, there have been mistakes made. And that's totally okay too, because we have grace for each other and we're doing the best that we can. And we all do a lot and we all wear a lot of hats, and we're all coming at it from a heart-centered place. So yeah,
And
don't be afraid to make mistakes too.
And you're really creating a great model for other communities, but even other organizations and businesses for the future, I think, because I think our survival in the future depends on how well we human beings are going to come together, work together, collaborate, have grace for each other, be joyful. And I think it's essential. And so I love that you are modeling how to do that and how to make change happen, and how to be a force for good and improve the community that you live in.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And are there any goals that you have for the future, and that
Here
you're
we go.
working towards? Is this
If we say them out loud, we know what's going to
We
happen.
Uh-oh.
said them
Yeah,
all.
I will hold you to it. I'm making a list.
Well, we've talked about, at the last, board retreat, which was last winter. They invited the SAGE members, which is the founding members, to come. And it was the first time we said out loud that we hope within the next 5 to 10 years to have a hospice house that is under the umbrella of MNDC, where we can actually do the training and do the mentoring and that it would be for indigent or homeless or who needs it, right? So we've thrown that out to the universe. Now we're just waiting for somebody to say, here, I have this house. And here I have all this money. So that's really probably our biggest bite off the candy bar. And we have other things. I think we're looking at a curriculum to do a doula school.
Mm.
So we would like to have that under the auspices of the MNDC as well. So what else you got, Michelle?
Well, one thing that I want to see, and again, I know what the end looks like, but I'm not sure what the middle is. But one challenge that I see with newly trained doulas, is, well, one is experiential work, which I feel like the hospice house and this mentor program will fill that bucket. But the other thing is, it's like you go do this training and then it's like, go do the work. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, very small percentage of the population are entrepreneurial or want to run a business. It's like everyone just wants to do the work, but there isn't a place to do it and get paid without running a business. So I really want to see, and it's starting to happen. I mean, it's starting to happen even here. Jane Whitlock, one of our founders, um, there was grant money that she brought a program to a place in Minneapolis here. I know I listened to your conversation, Karen, with Tom Wachnitz, that the chaplain at Walker Methodist and his passages program. So it's happening, but I don't necessarily want it all to be volunteer. I would like us to be able to show the value um, to the people, to the residents, to the patients, the value of what we bring, and have these institutions, the places where they live, care facilities, value what we can bring by paying us as employees. So that's something that I would really like to see. Again, I don't know how we'll get there, but I think all of these conversations, and I think the Death Collaborative just continuing to show up as a leader of professionals or group of professionals. And that's part of what we're doing too, is even the Team Richard program, being able to capture impact statements so that we can measure impact, because that's what we have to show. In order for these things to happen, we have to be able to show impact. So gathering those stories is the start of that. So I'm just really excited. Sky's the limit. Um, and other things that we have spoken and had no idea how we were going to get there have happened. So yeah, we're excited about all the things
Mhm.
to
Well,
come.
I believe in you. I feel it, I feel it. I feel it in your energy. Um, and that's just so exciting. I'm wondering if someone listening who's from a different state is thinking, I want to do this. If they go to the website for the collaborative, it's mndeathcollaborative.org. Can they learn some things just by going through your website and looking at various pages about your organization? If somebody wants to model themselves after you?
Yeah, I think there's some information there, and anyone can reach out to admin at mndeathcollaborative.org. We have had groups from all around the country reach out and ask. So, we do our best to meet with other groups when it makes sense. So, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that. Nina, anything else that you would like to add?
I'm just really grateful that that you're interested in um, in the Minnesota Death Collaborative and how we unfolded and unfurled and um, have come to grow and be um, and I like Michelle. It's one person at a time, and I speak with people all the time and say, just try it. Go to a meeting. Just see what it's like. Just give it a shot, and then join, because it's not about us getting coffers. It's about growing. What's going to happen when I mean, I hope to do this work until I'm older than I am now, because I consider myself relatively old now. But I hope that I can do it in maybe even when I'm 80, you know, that that I can still sit by the bedside. That's what I want to do. So we'll see. There have to be people behind me, right? There have to be people that are saying yes behind me, knowing that um, this is hard work and this is purposeful work and it's valuable work and it's heart work as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
So true. So well said, Nina. And you know, you're right. It's that passion that drives us to do the work, but then can also drive us to become collaborative and to start working together and really making an amazing difference in the community where we live. And I'm so grateful for both of you for everything you're doing through the Minnesota Death Collaborative, and also for both of you just being willing to come and talk to me today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your interest and all the conversations you are having.
Yeah.
It's important, and that's what I always say do too. It's like we can do this better. We can do death better. And talking about it together is where it starts. So I really appreciate the opportunity and what you do as well.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad we got acquainted because, as I told you before we recorded, we come to Minnesota often. So maybe we could get together and have a
You're invited.
collaborative lunch.
You're invited to have this. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank
that would be great.
thank
Yeah.
you so much. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to the next time we get to see one another, and best wishes and all positive energy for your collaborative.
Thank you. And best
Thank you.
wishes to you and everything that you're doing. We appreciate it too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
All right.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Michelle Kolling and Nina Guertin about the Minnesota Death Collaborative. And I certainly enjoyed it. And I hope if you feel inspired, you'll consider creating a collaborative in your community as well. So I'll be back next time with another interview for you. And until then, take care. Bye bye.